Hello, I am Beline Carlson at Nicolaya School. I am a 6 through 12 secondary generalist, highly qualified for social studies and language arts. And today we're here to talk about universal design for learning. So our objective with this slide share is that you are going to increase student engagement and success. That's the whole point of everything that we do, right? The relevance for UDL is that what works best for special needs kids is really what works best for everyone. So when we're practicing universal design, we're increasing our reach for kids, which is the best thing for kids in the middle as well. And your objective today is to pick up 3 ways or practice 3 ways to increase UDL in your classroom. So you should be able to watch this video, interact with these learning tools, and tomorrow you should be able to work these into your teaching. So universal design for learning is a concept that was put together through architecture and city planning. And the idea is when you are designing something like this corner, this sidewalk, or a building, or any kind of public space, you are designing it thinking about all the kinds of learners that there are. So here you see, a gentleman on a scooter. You see older people. You see younger people. You see a parent with children. So think about how those people would use a space. Now, if you were talking about a building, what kind of bathrooms would you have? What kind of stairways would you have to make these things more accessible for all kinds of users? What would you have available to them to make their use of that public space better? And the same way goes for our classrooms. Like, what do we need? What can we add? What can we shift in order to make our classrooms and our teaching more accessible for kids with autism, for kids who are ELL learners, for kids who have sensory processing issues, for kids with ADHD? Like, what are the types of things that we can do to make accessibility better for those types of students? The point of that, like why we would even bother with that, is that there is no such thing as an average student. The Air Force figured this out when they were trying to figure out how to design jets for fighter pilots. They found there's this myth of an average person, but there's not really such thing as an average person. So cognitively speaking, the Air Force was looking at it in terms of height and weight and neck length and arm length. They figured out that people were kind of all over the place in their measurements. And then when we think about cognition, we can look and see that, memory, language, knowledge, reading, vocabulary, curiosity, perceptual abilities, cognitive abilities, engagement levels, like interest levels, these types of things can be all over the place with one student. And we take all of those scores, like on an IQ test, and we average them all to find the score. So if you look at, like, my son, for instance, he has an IQ of 100 according to his IQ test. But if you look at the individual breakdown, his cognitive or his fluid reasoning skills are in the 98th percentile. His vocabulary is in the 85th percentile. It's just that when he took that IQ test, he was illiterate. So his coding skills and his tracking skills were down in like the single digits. So really looking at him as a student of average cognition isn't really playing to his strengths exactly. Here's another one, a picture of this. You have 2 kids that have an IQ of 103. But if you look at their different cognitive abilities here, you can see that even though they all average to 103, these learners are very different. They have very different abilities. So even when we're talking about an average student, none of our students are average. They're all over the place when it comes to different abilities and different, visual strengths, auditory strengths. It's not like that multiple intelligence has been pretty much scientifically debunked, but it is that concept of that we have all of these different types of learners. So, oops, nope, don't play. You can come back and watch the video later. It's about a 20-minute TED Talk. I highly recommend. So a traditional classroom is focused on content. You've got accommodations and modifications for specific students who have IEPs. The teacher decides how the material is taught. We do our best. We, as teachers, of course, we are practicing professional discretion and we're doing our best. But it's us that's driving the learning in a traditional classroom. The classroom has a fixed setup. So we've decided that we want our kids in straight rows or we want our kids in pods. And, the classroom stays how it stays. There's one way for a student to complete an assignment. So it's pretty straightforward. We explain how they're going to complete it, and then they complete it that way. And then we use grades to measure performance. So you complete the assignment, and then you get a grade. UDL, Universal Design for Learning, is a different focus. So we're looking at content and method. So for a specific content, like what is the method that you're choosing? And you're working with your students to have feedback on that. You're always thinking about, this is what I want you to learn, and this is how I'm teaching that. Is this working for you? And you are in a conversation with your students, even the little ones, all the way up through. You're in a conversation with them about how they want to learn and what works best for them. Accommodations are for all students. So you are going to make the assumption that every student that walks into your classroom has ADHD. Every student has autism. Every student is dyslexic. Every student is an ELL learner. Just make that assumption and then automatically build in those accommodations for everyone. Whether or not the students choose to engage in those accommodations or modifications, that's on them. But just make those accommodations a habit for you. The teacher works with the student to decide how they will learn, and that's that feedback that we talked about. So you're constantly having a conversation with the kids about what is working, what isn't working, what they want, what will help them engage. The classroom has a flexible setup. So my classroom is a cafe style seating. There's lots of different places for kids to sit, lots of like sofas, bean bags. I don't have any bean bags, I guess. Well, I guess I do. Cushions. There's high tables that they can sit at. There's a couple of traditional desks that they can choose to be at. And I can move things around. If I need to have an art space or we're going to need to do some workshopping, I can pull tables in, like foldable tables in, to set them up if I need them. The kids can pull them in if they're working on a project if they need them. So the classroom is really in a state of design. It's a design process between you and the students and what you need at whatever time, what works best for whatever thing that you're working on. The same thing with ways to complete an assignment. So maybe a student wants to do a podcast. Maybe they want to write an essay. Maybe they want to come up with a graphic novel. You are allowing them to drive what they want to turn into you. Now, of course, we're always pushing them and trying to get them to branch out of their comfort zone, so you don't have somebody who's constantly turning in 5-paragraph essays when you'd like to see them work on their visual communication skills and vice versa. We all should know how to operate Canva. We should all know how to operate Screencastify. We should all be able to, publish a good podcast via Anchor. We should all have these different tech skills and different communication skills, and we all want to be practicing those things and branching them out. But when you're not focusing on building that skill, why not let the kids decide how they are going to show you their mastery over the content? So also grades. A lot of times we have a lot of problems with kids who miss assignments and they get zeros, and then the zero ruins their chances of getting an A for the rest of the semester. Why not let the kids turn things in until the end of the semester? I mean, we do have a timeline that we have to honor, and time management is an important skill to teach. But is time management the most important skill, or is it the content of our classes that's the most important skill? If time management is the most important skill, then absolutely hard and fast deadlines and moving on. But then probably you ought to be scaffolding that and putting energy into teaching that. If it's the content that's the most important thing, then let's let the kids engage with the learning and have some flexibility with due dates and have options for the kids to go back and redo their assignments so that they can bring them up. So the grades are reinforcing the goals. The grades are reflective of what the kids can do right now, not what the kids did at the beginning of the quarter. Like be thinking about grades as something that is fluid and that kids can always be improving. So this is the CAST UDL guidelines. I'm going to click on this and take you to that website in just a second. but you can use your phone. So, and I added this in here as a way to scaffold on your assignments. These QR codes can be generated for videos like this. The QR codes can be generated for different websites or different images that you want kids to have options to. Most older kids have cell phones. Let's have them use them. So a kid or you right now can open up the camera of your phone and point it at this, and it's going to pull up that CAST website. So all of a sudden now you don't have to go anywhere else. You just have that website on your phone, and you're able to scroll through while you're watching the video, while you're engaging with the content that's on your computer. It just gives you another screen. This is something that's very easy to add to a screen or onto a paper worksheet. So CAST, which we'll go to, talks about three ways ways of thinking about learning. So you have the why of learning, you have the what of learning, and then you have the how of learning. And all of these things are operating in different parts of our brain. And then there's lots of different ways to engage these ideas. So going to CAST now. These things, there's a whole bunch of strategies that you can use. That also gives you why. But there's this great little chart here, and this is something that you could create also for different kinds of learners. So provide multiple means of engagement, provide multiple means of representation, provide multiple means of action and expression. It gives you different ways to access things. It gives you, if you click on each of these little sub things here, it's going to give you strategies that you can start building into your teaching. And it also gives you scientific research that backs up why you want to do that. Also, videos is a great website, tons of resources. You could spend hours here. So my favorite strategies that I use are I put in objective and relevance at the beginning of my every assignment. So this is what a typical assignment looks like. You've got objective and relevance. I give them step-by-step directions. I give them a rubric so they know what success looks like, and then I give them their learning resources, which it's a hyperlinked document that from PowerSchool they can find this and they can click on these learning resources, so websites and videos. I have students who don't want to waste time with videos like this. They just want to look at the resources. They want to skim through the reading. I have other students who love to watch videos and prefer not to read, and so I always include videos to stuff. So you want to use this in student language, objective and relevance, and we did that at the beginning of this screencast. Multiple ways of engaging with the content. So website video, maybe you also include a lecture like this that you have on there. Maybe you are including a worksheet packet that they can either print out or they can find in the classroom. Then you want to leave finished projects open-ended. So if you look at my rubric, I say, what is a 3? And that means I have 3 on the rubric, means I've met the standard. Straight 3s all the way down on the rubric is at 90%. Now, if kids want more than that, they want to hit the 4, I don't know what they're doing, but it's going to be above and beyond basic expectations. So in this case, each brainstorm follows the described procedures. So I'm assuming that they are going through these different brainstorms and they're working through this, and each includes at least 30 entries. So maybe they turn me in a brainstorm that has 50 entries, more than one, and that's going to be a 4. Maybe they have done some sort of interactive web page thing and have found a really cool new app that I've not seen before to use their brainstorm. That would be a 4. And then their portfolio page. Images are high quality, brainstorming procedure is thoroughly explained, students have reflected on challenges and successes. So maybe they turned in an interactive video like this to explain that. Maybe that would be the 4. But I don't know what a 4 looks like. I just know what 3s look like. And that way I leave them open-ended. And I also don't tell them exactly what they have to do. I tell them what I want to see, and then I let them decide what they're going to do. Now, here's the part where you try, and you might want to pause this video and engage with some of this information. So here's the QR link right here to the brainstorming lesson, so you can open up that document for yourself and take a better look. Maybe you even want to make a copy of it for yourself and then, change things around so you have it as a template. Here are the links that CAST UDL resources. You can use your phone or click on the hyperlink to get to where you want to go from the screen or from the Google Slides part. And then maybe you want to work with this with the rest of your staff. So you're going to ask them to find one way to increase accessibility in their classroom for tomorrow. And why is because the relevance is you're going to make the world a better place for all of your students. So even the average students that don't have the 504s and that don't have the IEPs or are not on intervention are going to find your teaching and their learning more accessible and more user-friendly for them. And as far as learning materials, you are wanting to make sure that you have an objective and relevance written in student language. It is relevant. You make it relevant to the students' actual own lives and learning. And if it's simply a stepping stone to the next project, tell them that, like this is not a skill necessarily that you care too much about, but it will help you with the next step in your learning. And that's why we're doing it. Be honest, pull back the curtain and let the kids know why they're doing what they're doing. And then, the variety of learning materials. So you want to see text, audio, video, games. There's a ton of games that I've seen linked to Brain Pop on Clever. There's a ton of learning games out there for all kinds of things. Engage in that. Find an app online. I think I have like a $1 a month subscription to an app that lets me generate my own games, memory games, quiz games. Kahoot is a delightful thing. Kids love Kahoot. Bring in games or have the kids design the games. If they want to turn a piece of work in, they can make a game for other students and give you access to it. Make the kids do the work for you. So your rubric should be clear, concise, student-friendly language. The learning goals are specific and the finished product is open-ended. So you're telling them exactly what they're supposed to be learning and what you want to see, but you're not telling them what that is going to look like. Don't tell them you want a poster. Don't tell them you want X, Y, and Z. If your goal is to teach them how to do that thing, that 5-paragraph essay, that visually engaging poster, if that is your learning goal, then absolutely give them those parameters and those guidelines that you want to see. I do that with my kids all the time. But if the goal isn't the actual thing that you're having them create, then leave that part open-ended. Try to leave as much open-ended as you can and let them struggle. Let them find the things. So that is all I have with this. I am delighted to help you find resources and give you ideas on what to do, different ways of doing this. You could do a Google Slides like this one. You could create a Prezi. Do teach this process to your students. Once they see this, once you pull that curtain back and you show them what they could be doing, I've had students write whole units for me for the rest of the class, and they've turned out really, really well, like really amazing stuff. And the one who's doing the working is the one who's doing the learning. Remember that. So if you are working your rear end off to try to constantly teach kids and come up with new stuff, you're learning a lot. That's awesome. But if you pass all that stuff over to the kids and they're the ones who's working, then they're the ones who are learning, which means that, you're actually doing your job more if you do your job less, if that makes sense. Anyway. Get a hold of me if you have any questions, comments, or observations. I am always interested to hear feedback or, your questions about this process. It's going to help me solidify my ideas and help me find more resources. So I always appreciate that. Have a delightful day.